jointly with other groups who have a similar interest in valuing the community. And we've had an amazing day. We've had an amazing day and just received a lot of great information. So thank you for joining us. As Dr. Lewis mentioned, my name is Bella Lovings, and I'm a volunteer / internship student in her office, and it's been absolutely amazing. And so I just want to briefly introduce the speakers that we're going to have this afternoon. And our first speaker is going to be Mr. Henry Campbell. He's the president of Biofeedback Resource International Corporation. Mr. Campbell is also certified in biofeedback and neurofeedback, and he's also the past president of the East Regional Biofeedback Society, and he has well over 30 years experience. So we're going to be in for a great treat, for wealth of information. And after him, immediately after him, we'll have Dr. Lewis standing here. And Dr. Lewis is also a certified specialist who provides counseling and guidance for anyone. And I'll allow her, just for the sake of time, so that we can get everyone in, allow her to share some more about herself as she's going through her presentation. And last but not least, we have our beautiful Ms. West, who I also work very closely with. And Ms. West is the wellness coordinator also for the WRC, which is Women's Resource Center, where I'm volunteer. And it was so funny because she was just asking this morning, where are my people, where are my people? And I was sitting right there at the table. So also, Ms. West is a certified coach and wellness coach. Thank you again for joining us. Each one of them will provide just a little bit more detail about themselves. If you're needing some information, please, because we have cards available for you. Please do not hesitate to join us, partner with us. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to address those questions. But definitely, we love the partnership and see how we can make an impact in everyone's lives, in our communities, and strengthen and change those communities. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to say, and I know that Mr. Campbell is going to talk about that, but I want you to know that I truly know what stress is about. So you can go to school, and as you know, you see me, I did not graduate yesterday, most likely. So the thing is that when I write about it, I'm writing about my stress now and trauma to see what is this all about. And there is truly a cultural stress and trauma environment. I didn't ask the presenters this morning the question I really wanted to ask. I wanted to ask, how is it that we have such informed, well-versed physicians in all of Houston, and all of the illness, the highest prevalence of illness, to the center, the medical center? So how is that existing? Some of them spoke to it briefly. So what it says is that, tell me, where is it that people go every day, once a week, twice a week? Where do they go? Where do they visit? Who do they visit? Church. Who said that? I don't know, but put your name down. Because the people who, I just went off and forgot, you do get a free session, okay, assessment. So the thing is, yes, we visit church. This particular presentation today is to help you. Someone walked past me to say, now you know the church folks ain't coming to this presentation. I said, well, now wait a minute. We must then present it in a different manner. One, we're real. Two, we come from a place of environmental stress. So when you turn the TV on, what do you hear? Murder. Yes, a lady's head found in a ditch. The child was shot on the corner of Color. Airport Boulevard, somebody, blah, 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 just after church. Somebody walks in and shoots someone in church that's praying. Someone down the street is killing his wife. These are things that you're familiar with. And when you leave for work in the morning, you see 5 or 6 buildings standing. And when you come back, those buildings are gone. Research shows that that is considered environmental trauma. It's stress. A sequence of things that occur. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the other thing is, both Harry and I, Mr. Campbell, have been working together since, I can't tell you how old, because then I'll tell you. So he was younger.
I didn't hear.
We saw a picture where he had hair. Okay, then, so the thing is that I can do the story, but back in 1983, I worked with Mayor Good, and during in Philadelphia, and you probably heard about the MOVE experience. So sometimes being old is good. It really is. And so what happened was Good allowed the police to come in and bomb because people were upset about radicals in the area who were protesting about Black Power. And they then bombed the top of the buildings there in Center City, Philadelphia. At that time, I was very active with the Association of Black Psychologists. So they asked us to come in and come up with a emergency preparing program. And what would we do? What kind of interventions? So we did that. What we found is that the people who had a history of trauma or stress could not recover. Some of them could not sleep. They had all these problems, you understand? And so that particular intervention. So then I was working with the gentleman in my office, and he suggested, you need to go and figure out why these people cannot adjust. You go visit, that was interesting. Later time, that's a later story. Okay, so I got a chance to meet a Euro-American couple who helped me understand things even better from a more personal point of view. So that's when I met Mr. Campbell. And so he was at that time a young person working with the head guy. He was some kind of millionaire or something. And so he left all of his millionaire stuff to Mr. Campbell because he was so good. And so at that particular time, I learned so much about the cell. And that the cell in the body is what God gave us. So that's what I was telling the lady in the room there, is that biofeedback is not something sinful. It is something that appreciates what God gave us, which is the cell, and the cell is the origination of our being here. So we really look at that, and where does, and that's what I was trying to ask the guy. It must, and I thought one of your people knows. And I asked the guy, I said, well, in that case, how is it that we get cancer? And remember, he said there's not a prevention. Well, I was saying, well, now look, the cell gets inflamed first. The cell, when it's sick and we're doing different things, gets inflamed. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what it is we can do in our churches. We're going to talk about biofeedback. We're going to talk about stress. So I'm fat because of stress. I had acne because of stress and what I ate. I was depressed when my husband died, and my daughter died, and my mother died, and my brother died, and they were boom, 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 and I was the caregiver. This little man going like, what? So now look, so too blessed to be stressed is not about I'm already equipped. So you know what it is about is knowing the appreciation of the cell. And I was telling Miss West last night, I said, you know what? I'm appreciative of this, and I was just telling her these things, and I was saying, no matter how hard, because when you talk of these things, you have more problems in the regular world because don't nobody want to talk about it, right? They don't want to hear about it, and so therefore, even if you're doing something good, other people don't want you to do it. So if you really believe in something, you have to then what? Keep studying that, keep moving, if you really believe it. So if you believe the cell is something, then you need to keep moving and talk about it, right? Okay, so, Ms. Campbell?
Okay, so I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first few slides are not my slides. so I
okay, well, I'll keep the
let me
It spells stress as number one to make it rest.
Okay, so Imani Faith Health. I don't know what's on the slides. Imani Faith Health. Not really. I don't know what order there is. Imani Faith Health was originated back in the 80s on the East Coast when all of this stuff was happening and I spoke about it. People didn't even know nothing about rebuild beliefs. You know, renew beliefs, rebuild faith, reconnect. Boy, they were like, what you talking about? You must be some psych or something woman. What are you talking about, all this faith stuff and whatever? So, but the thing about what you recognize, the HIV, was really high at that time. So what we did is we pulled together churches in order to make interventions to reduce the prevalence of HIV. So that's what that is. And we found that if we could reconnect families to their community, the community to their family, and there's a process for that, and help people understand how faith really works internally, then we could make some health changes and lifestyle changes. So I'm not sure how.
I got it.
Okay, so stress. So stress, we call it trauma. Because you know us, we don't do nothing simple. Plus we're from Texas. Right. So when we are stressed, it means that we really gonna do it. We're gonna stay up all night. We're gonna eat chitlins and cornbread. We're going to party. We're gonna smoke us some of them little cigarettes. We're gonna have us some stuff. We're gonna dance. We're gonna do it all in 24 hours. But what happens is that situations can happen like the floods here, other kinds of things, and when that happens, it's no longer stress. Somebody knows how to hit it.
Yeah, go to the next.
Thank you. So then what you're having is what people don't understand. Stress is a good thing. Somebody says, ooh, but when I stay up and I don't study till the last minute, I got energy. I can really finish that test. I can look like my brain can move faster. But they have no idea that they're burning the chromatin in the cells away. In other words, they're weakening the efficacy that you have in your body. We talked about how our experiences have changed our lives and how it has been a blessing to go through those experiences and feel the emotional strength and fiber inside of yourself, knowing that God has put you there. No matter what is going on, you can step over, step around, and you know you're still going the way that He says for you to go. And you listen real carefully that it's not you, okay? So I'm going to turn this over to, and I know Ms. West is going to talk about spirituality. She's also Pastor West. You can turn into her on Unspoken, okay? And so we're going to be looking at that. Okay, I'm the mind part. I'll be back later.
30 minutes? Okay. All right. So let's, part of the reason why I wrote this book was mainly just to get people to understand a little bit more about the problems of stress, that it's not just this thing and, oh, well, we have stress and nothing to do about it, that it's a serious thing and we should do something about it. So you can go ahead. So these are some of the things that stress can cause. So you have things like high blood pressure, and we know that that's a problem for a lot of our people. You have stomach problems, you have weight gain, all of these things, asthma, diabetes, pain, immune function, all can be affected by stress. And I sort of understood it to a certain degree, but then I got to understand a little bit more from the work of Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who wrote the book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it talked a lot about how stress causes this fight or flight response. And it gets you to a point where everything is put on pause because there's an emergency. And the body deals with getting you out of that emergency situation, and then it's supposed to go back to normal and everything functions okay. But the kind of stress that we deal with is not an emergency physically, it's usually emotional stress, and it doesn't go away so quick. So if our body is, instead of responding for 10 seconds or 30 seconds, it's responding for 30 days, that's a big difference, right? So it doesn't get a chance to shut off. So it also affects the way that the brain works. And often when we're under stress, we're not thinking clearly. Because again, brain is in a situation where it's trying to deal with emergency, but it shuts off the way that it normally would deal with active thinking, problem solving, and things like that. And of course, it can cause disease and so on because of the interruption of normal functioning of the systems. So one of the things that happens is the nervous system is affected. We have the autonomic nervous system, where you have the sympathetic that usually speeds things up and the parasympathetic that slows things down. We don't usually have to think about this, it just automatically balances everything. Stress sometimes throws that off, so you have more sympathetic activation than you do parasympathetic. It's out of balance, and it causes some of these problems. So there's lots of things that we can deal with as far as helping with stress. You have things like meditation, yoga, and so on. Two of the things that I want to talk about a lot is diaphragmatic breathing and muscle relaxation. Those are things that you always have with you that you can do without anybody having to know that you're doing it, and you can work on controlling your stress. So being more aware of your breathing and also what your muscles are doing. And then some of the other things we mentioned. So biofeedback is a technology that is used to help us to be more aware of these changes in our body and to gain some control over our nervous system. There's things, again, that we don't usually have to think about. God created us so that things happen automatically and they stay in balance pretty much, but then they can get out of balance. And because we're not, in our culture, usually trained to be sensitive to our body, our feelings, our thoughts, how our thoughts affect our body, we tend to not really do what we need to do to keep things in balance. And so I could be walking around like this with my shoulders up, and I don't even notice I'm doing it because I've done it so much, it feels normal to me. You walk up to me and say, drop your shoulders, relax. I'm like, I am relaxed. Well, if I drop my shoulders, now that might feel strange because I haven't been doing that, all right? Even with our breathing, we could be breathing at 20 breaths a minute, we don't even notice it. Whereas if we actually measure it, you can see it right on the screen, you know you're doing it, and you can learn how to control it. Just like, you know, if I'm trying to lose weight, I step on the scale, I'm up 5 pounds, now I know, okay, maybe tomorrow I'm not gonna have that cheesecake. So that's also a form of feedback where we're getting information, we're changing our behavior based on the information we got. These are some of the things that we can measure with biofeedback. You have muscle tension, skin temperature, skin conductance, which is a measure of how much sweat there is on your skin, heart rate, breathing, and also brainwave activity. And this is just a quick example of the difference between heart rate activity when someone is in a negative emotional state and not breathing properly compared to when they are in a more positive emotional state and they shift their breathing. All right, so which would you rather have your heart doing, this or this? Right? So, and it's changing like that all the time. Okay? And part of what we can do with the biofeedback is teach people how to learn control over that. All right? So with this is a sensor that measures breathing activity, and it can show how a person's breathing. When they inhale, the line goes up. When they exhale, it goes down. And this is showing how the heart rate is affected by the breathing. So a lot of times, you know, if someone's stressed, they tell them to take a deep breath, right? And usually people don't feel like it's going to do anything. But if you could show them that their heart is acting different when they shift their breathing, then they're going to pay more attention to it. All right? All right, so this is the part that I think this is why they brought me here. So I'm going to do a demonstration. So would you mind volunteering?
Okay.
All right. See, I did it different. Rather than just ask for something. Okay, so we're going to have you just come up here.
You must have asked them before.
What's that? No, I didn't. I just read her face, and I felt like she would, you know.
I'd be all right.
That sounds like it'll be all right.
All right, so I'm going
This
to.
won't hurt.
See, I didn't even tell her that, and she volunteered anyway. So this is the biofeedback. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 different sensors on. One is going to measure muscle activity, one is going to measure breathing, and the other one is going to measure heart rate. I'm just going to put the sensors here. That's okay. All right. So this is really going to be measuring muscle activity. Okay.
Now I want y'all to know we'll be doing this. We're getting ready to start doing this in the churches to show people how they can become healthy. And we'll be going to tell them accomplishments so we can be able to do that.
I want you to put this around the waist. This should be in the front. We need to adjust it. We need to right adjustment. Okay. So that one's measuring breathing. And let's see. This is in the right one. Let me see if I can. It might be back too. All right.
Looks like you're trying to relate.
You know, and usually I would go through, you know, telling the person that there's no electricity going into the person, it's just measuring, all right?
If I fall out.
So all we're doing is measuring. Nothing is going in, there's nothing, you're not gonna feel anything, there's no shock, no needle, nothing like that. And she was brave enough to volunteer before I said all of that, so we should be thankful. Okay. Now, you don't have to use so many of these. You could just measure just one thing. But to give a good demonstration, I just wanted to give you the full
This is
deal.
good for ADHD.
Okay, now, I think I have the glasses somewhere. Okay. Okay, so now, what we're looking at here, this green line is showing when she breathes. So when she inhales, the green line goes up. When she exhales, it goes down. All right? The red line is showing her heart rate. Okay? So just sit normally for
Let us
a
do a
minute.
prayer. Let me see. Always have them do a prayer.
She slowed her breathing down.
Okay, so now just, I'm just going to let you turn your chair a little bit, just so you can see the screen a little bit better. Okay, can you see it all right? Okay. So now I want you, have you ever practiced diaphragmatic breathing? Okay, so I want you to just see if you can slow your breathing down and just breathe like this, where you're inhaling and your stomach goes out, and when you exhale, your stomach goes in. Okay, just try to keep your shoulders relaxed while you do that. This number here is showing how many breaths per minute you're breathing. So I'd like if you could keep that below 10. If you see it go above 10, then just slow your breathing down a little bit. So that's nice, smooth breathing. You can see how she's doing there. And then what we start to see eventually is that the heart rate starts to follow the breathing to a certain extent. So you see how when she exhales, see how the heart rate went down, and now when she inhaled, it's going up. So that's like the variability of the heart rate, and that's a good thing. Now I'm going to just show you a different screen here for a second. Okay, so this has a pacer on it. So if someone is used to breathing very fast, say 15, 20 breaths a minute, I can have them follow this pacer. So if they inhale while it's going up and exhale while it's going down, at that point she'd be breathing at 7 breaths a minute. It's set for 7 breaths a minute, which would be a healthier range to breathe at. And this one is measuring the muscle activity. So if she takes a deep breath like a lot of people do like this, then you're going to see this line go up. So just take a breath where you raise your shoulders. You see that? So we would have her practice by keeping the shoulders relaxed so that line doesn't go up like that. Anybody have any quick questions on that? No? Okay, good. All right, so that's how we do the biofeedback, and let me just show you another screen here. This is just showing muscle tension. So let's say she's someone who carries tension in her upper back. If she just raise your shoulders, see how it went up? Now just relax. Relax. Now it comes down. So now you notice when she relaxed, it didn't come all the way back down to where it was before. And she mentioned that she carries tension there. So that's what happens sometimes. I might go to pick this up, Now, after I finish picking it up and putting it down, my muscles should go back to a resting state. But maybe they don't because of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about things that are problems, and so I hold the tension in my body. That's part of what we talk about with trauma, where our body is still reacting to whatever the problem was. It could have been 5 years ago, and the body can still be reacting to it. And often we hold the tension in our shoulders or other places. So we would teach the person to relax. We can set a level where they try to stay below. Okay? So that's a quick demonstration of the biofeedback. And we'll just save that. And you can keep track of how the person is doing and things like that. But we're not going to do that at this point. And we will go back to the presentation here. Let's see, did I have any other slides? Okay, so I'm going to unhook her so she can be free, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide. I can multitask. I'm trying to stay on time here. So, in summary, stress is definitely a problem. It can cause a lot of problems, and we do have effective ways that we can manage it. We're not going to get rid of all of the sources of stress. That'd be nice, but then we lose some loved ones, so we don't want to do that. So we can't always get rid of the source of the stress. We have to learn how to manage so that we don't react to stress in the same way. And you probably know some people that really don't react that much to stress at all. It doesn't matter what happens, they're still cool. Now you got other people that react to every single thing, and they're the ones that end up getting sick. So we want to definitely do something about managing our stress, and that's what we're going to talk more about. And definitely we want to share the information about stress with other people that we care about. All right? So I want to thank you.
Thank you. It could be something, okay? Somebody's child goes off to college, and the parent just can't think of what they're going to do. I don't know, everything is changing, it's a loss, okay? So actually, we want to learn how to handle loss, and one of the things that really help is to read, to look at it, because physiological changes, as he said, goes on with that. Because now you have cortisol that's changing, you have acetylcholine, all of those things are going on when they're lost. So if you pretend that is not going on, the chemical changes are happening. Your brain, and what we want to talk about is the key to rewiring your brain. So actually, if you think about neural impulses, every time you think one thought, and then if you think another thought like that thought, your brain is being, let's just say that that's number 8. Your brain is being rewired through its impulses when you see a particular thing to go in that way. Now remember, your brain is not just static. It is just there. You can look at TV, and over a period of time at night, your brain will get smooth on that side. Okay? And so it's an active living organ that we have to think about. So those little neural impulses, when you think a certain way, like they said, if you're around negative people, if you're around non-productive people, if you're around persons, what is happening is it's not like you're going to hurt the person or don't. You're not getting in there to avoid the person itself. But you need to know what's happening with your children and with yourself. So that's actually happening. If I say black, 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 your brain is really right now being rewired to think black. So if you see something on TV, if you read the papers, your brain is really being rewired to think in that manner at all times. And so the chemical, the neurological self is being rewired. That's why when we do biofeedback, we want to know the person's history so that we can help them rewire the repetitive thoughts that they may have. And change cannot occur. So you have your way of thinking, and people think I just have feelings because I have feelings. No, your feelings begin to, feel this. Oh my God, where is it coming from? I had no idea It was the way that I was thinking about it and how I was preparing my brain that truly was affecting how I felt. And then my own actions with that. And so now there are problems if the things are different. If you're thinking one thing and we got some other stuff going on there, right? Okay? But the thing is so when you look at your church, look at the church. When we're teaching people to think, we want them to actively learn and think and keep the brain going. So we don't want them to just repeat scripture. We want them to understand and get their thoughts every day, to follow what they believe about the scripture, so that they can attach the feelings that they have with what they do, and then actually do something about it. So they asked a question in there, why don't people go to the doctor? Why don't blah, 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 blah. They're myths. But what it is that there are things that are being said at church that actually keep us from moving. It is that if you believe in God, now I know I've heard this over years and years and years, you're violating if you just don't, what is it, pray? Whatever it is, it doesn't require any action. You're just waiting on God. Well, God done been there and talked to you and he done told you about it. He told you that your knees weren't going to bend if you keep eating chitlins. He told you, he said if you keep eating the sugar and you keep eating it over there, you're going to have diabetes. I told you that when you started losing your vision. Well, now you're still waiting on him. And he said, do something. I'm being facetious about it, funny, but actually, I just know he's telling us all the time. Look around your church and see what you can do. Look at the people in the community. Stop raising money to raise money, to raise money. Raise money to raise money so you can raise money. But the homeless person down the street and the person next door, because he said to do two things, right? Believe in me and do what? Go out and teach, right. So what is it we're supposed to do? I asked a lady, she volunteered today from in there. She said, I had cancer, and blah, 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 blah. I said, well, would you be a walking my shoes person? She says, what's that? I said, if you active in your church and you believe, you go out, you share your experience. And then we would donate a pair of shoes to this person with your information in the shoe. Okay? And it would sound, now you're doing something because you're sharing. You got to move, you got to do something. So one of the things is this was a big thing that happened, and it happens all the time. But don't we have to get prepared for it? So if we're going to get prepared for health, trauma is going to happen all the time. Right. So right now, while we're waiting, ooh, I just don't wait. Okay, waiting says that we don't even have anything to float in. If you had anything about you, you'd have an inner tube. At least. Because it already told you that you need to have your inner tube. You already need your toothbrush, your deodorant and stuff already bagged up, hanging on a bag on the door, because you live in a what? A flood area. Okay, so if you believe that he's talking to you, he has sent so many messages. Has he not? Okay. Okay, so one of the things that we look at Houston, the same thing that I said.
So I'm a licensed ordained pastor. This is really my passion. She was talking about eating, and there are laws of, it's called laws of kashrut in the Old Testament, which says that we can't eat shellfish, we're not supposed to eat pigs, we're not supposed to eat any of that. But what we say is that was in the Old Testament. We done passed to the new. Oh, I'm ad-libbing now because nothing is on. I don't have but 5 minutes. And so what we do is we fail to follow rules. And so when you fail to follow rules, then what's going to happen? You're going to get sick, and then what I've noticed in my family is that when we've been diagnosed with something, we never change our eating habits. It's the same thing over and over again. If they tell you you've been diagnosed with something, then change the way you eat, change the way you think. The next thing I really want to drive home is this. We as Christians owe the world an encounter with Jesus. As Christians, we owe the world an encounter with Jesus. And so, if you're going to believe something, you have to believe it in your heart. Because if you don't believe it in your heart, it's not going to happen. Jesus said that you have to believe in your heart. The scripture says that you have to believe in your heart that Jesus is the Son of God, that he went to the grave, that he rose, he was resurrected. You've got to believe that. If you don't believe that, nothing else is going to happen. So what we do as Christians, we got a drive-by prayer life. We pray. We take lists. Got a big old list. And we take that list and we put that, and when we finish with that list, we're done. But what God is asking for is a relationship. And that relationship requires time. It requires waiting in his presence. I'm a presence junkie. Because when we wait in his presence, something begins to happen. When we learn how to wait on him to come, if you wait on him, he's coming. Be consistent. Go every day. Take 15 minutes. Get you a scripture. Read that scripture. You don't have to have a big prayer life. You don't have to do a lot of huff-a-shuff. No. 15 minutes a day. Waiting on God. Repeating the scripture. Believing what he says. It will change your whole life. Then we move from running around doing everything but what he said, and that is to come into his rest. Because we think we're invincible. So we don't rest, and our mind is constantly going. We watch the news. I don't watch the news. Because the news is too negative for me. And the news will slant what you think about God. And then you keep perpetuating that by saying, keep talking about it, but you forget who God is. And I think we reduce God to who we think he is, rather than this big old God who's omnipotent, who's omnipresent, who steps outside of time. He created time for us. He doesn't even live in time. She gave me a 1 minute. So what because I can go on and on. I want you to take away from this. From me, take away this. Get a relationship with God. And then watch your life change. So I'm going to do this relaxation thing. And she's going to come on and she's going to ask you, she's going to give you some instruction, because we got to learn how to relax. Because if we don't learn how to relax, this world is going to take us out. There's too much going on. And the only place you're going to find that peace and that comfort is in Jesus. Amen? Amen. Talk to me. Okay. She heard me up, y'all. Had a nice little presentation. Heard me up. Okay. So see, while they're writing, you, I want you to kind of relax. You want to keep going?
I'm going to stop and get out your way.
There's also a prayer that you can do at your desk.
You want me to turn around?
Not yet, let me say this. It's called the breath prayer. And you say, you take some deep breath, and you say, Abba, you're my Father. Abba, you're my Father. You can say that even at your desk and calm down, okay? So she's going to talk about,
my name is Wendy Dowden, and I'm the co-founder of the Igniting Hope Ministries. I hope you enjoyed the CD, and if you do, you might like to check out our website, ignitinghope.com, for more of our material to ignite hope and the presence of God in your life. Thanks for joining me on the journey of activating your spirit. The goal of this meditation is to give you tools for quieting your mind and body so you can commune with God spirit to spirit. Meditation is not about finding a place of nothingness, but finding and connecting your spirit with God's spirit. Please understand, this is an activation and an experience. You will need to find a quiet, comfortable place with no distractions to get the full benefit from it. Are you ready for a spirit-to-spirit encounter? Then let's begin.